So just yesterday, some fresh drama hit the competitive 40k community from this weekend's largest event, that being Frontline Gaming's Lone Star Open. So let's take this opportunity to grab our tea, sip it gingerly, and rage incoherently into our keyboards. What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and today we're talking about an interesting judge call that was made in the weekend's largest event, that being Lone Star Open, run by Frontline Gaming. I'm going to try to approach this topic as gingerly as possible since there are a lot of parties involved, but only one of them is actually at fault with this particular piece of drama. So what I don't want to do is draw any undue criticism to people who don't necessarily deserve it. And we'll do this in the style of a regular discussion video. So I'm going to throw on some Warhammer 40k's Space Marine, and we'll just talk about it. So to get started, a brief recap, and I will say that I'm basing my information entirely on what was discussed on stream and scores submitted in the BCP event after the fact. I wasn't there personally, so this is mostly second-hand accounts relayed as the event occurred. In round 4 of the 6-round Super Major, the Lone Star Open, the two undefeated players, Kevin McCormick, running a mixed Chaos list, bringing Chaos Knights in addition to Abaddon and Cypher, and Robert Hawkins, running a pure Death Guard list, were playing a game on stream. Somewhere in the middle of the game, an event judge was made aware that Kevin was playing the Chaos Knight secondaries, specifically Ruthless Tyranny and Storm of Darkness, despite the fact that Abaddon was his warlord, and the Chaos Knight Codex prevents the use of faction secondaries included within it if they are not led by a Chaos Knight as their warlord. According to the stream, this wasn't brought to light by the streamer or anyone in the chat room, but another participant at the event at the time. Based on this information, the judge elected to penalize Kevin for playing illegal secondaries, initially docking him VPs for both receiving a yellow card for an illegal game state and zeroing out the scores of secondaries that the judge ruled Kevin could not have taken. This made it functionally impossible for Kevin to win the game, as he was going to be playing somewhere around 40 points down from his opponent, and he conceded. Although, at the end of the day, this ruling was eventually changed after the fact, and both players received a relatively high-scoring draw, 88 to 88. Now, before we move on with the discussion about this incident, I want to throw down a quick disclaimer. On the day of any event, any ruling that a judge makes is final, full stop. If they ruled in favor of a change to the core rules of the game, you could appeal the ruling and you could whine about it online in a Reddit thread or something like that, but you still have to play with that decision in mind. Without the authority to adjudicate rules without being questioned, the purpose of even having a judge at a competitive event falls away and total chaos ensues because there's no one to make rulings on rules questions. While players can, and obviously should, have an open discussion with a judge regarding the rules that they may be mistaken about, whatever the judge elects to rule at the end of that discussion must be abided by those players. That said, in this case, this ruling was mishandled in so many ways, it was pretty insane. So first off, here's how the rules actually work. In Warzone Nephilim format games, which the event was using, the chapter-approved section of a codex that has its faction-specific secondaries and the restrictions to taking them are not used at all. Instead, the Nephilim GT book replaces all access to faction secondaries with the lists within its own pages. This means that the restriction printed in the Chaos Knights book, which, as I stated before, restricts secondaries in that book to armies that have a Chaos Knight as their warlord, does not apply. This means that the Chaos Knight secondaries unlock when the entire army has the Chaos Knight keyword, with the noted exception of units with the Agent of Chaos keyword, which both Abaddon and Cypher, the two Heretic Astartes characters that Kevin had included in his list, both carry. There is no restriction that causes those Heretic Astartes characters to break secondary access, and no requirement that the warlord be from a particular faction. So right off the bat, the judge's ruling is entirely erroneous. Although, to be fair, in this particular instance, it is extremely confusing, because the Chaos Knight secondaries themselves are printed identically between the GT Nephilim packet and the Chaos Knights Codex. The only change is how they're unlocked, so I can totally understand where the confusion comes from. Knowing that those two sets of secondaries are functionally identical, it could be easy to quickly reference a Chaos Knights Codex rather than go to the core rules in the GT Nephilim packet, which have slightly different criteria for unlocking them. But furthermore, the decision to blank out their secondary scoring at the time is also bizarre, since the Nephilim format includes technology to resolve literally this exact issue, giving each player quote-unquote default secondaries that are optionally replaced with new secondaries based on what the player desires, with the intention that they will supersede any illegal picks. This would have given Kevin the grind them down and behind enemy lines objective, certainly suboptimal picks, but good enough to play through if the game was already relatively competitive. As I said before, according to the submitted scores after the event, the players were given a high-scoring draw instead, so, in all fairness, I don't believe that original ruling was stuck with. But still, that leaves two players with a half-played game, tons of wasted time, a game that could not be played to its logical conclusion, and therefore determine an actual winner for the final standings of the event. At the end of the day, both of these players continued to remain undefeated, with the only non-win on each of their records being that draw in round 4. However, that draw did mean that one player escaped the game undefeated when otherwise they may not have, and may have affected subsequent pairings. Now, in all fairness to the judge in this case, this situation absolutely sucks. Warhammer 40k is an unreasonably complex game, and it's impossible to know every niggling rule's idiosyncrasy. So something like Abaddon's role as the Warlord disrupting Chaos Knight objective selection sounds totally credible if a third party brings it up to you. Is this the fault of the designers and rules team? Yes, absolutely. They do a very bad job. But the other problem here is an approach to judging with a confrontational and, frankly, aloof attitude. Now, I'm not saying that the judge was hostile or adversarial to the player in question. I didn't see the interaction on stream, but it doesn't look like anything took place that wasn't entirely amicable between these two people. But a ruling like this assumes the ignorance and ill intention of the player in question, as well as also assuming the correctness of the judge's understanding. The assumption that a player would construct a list, paint and assemble models, and probably fly hours to play in an event that cost upwards of $100 to play, and do so knowing that they had an illegal strategy is kind of ridiculous. Based on my experience, when a player submits a list with a lot of moving parts interacting like Kevin's Chaos list did, they have generally done their research to confirm that the strategy is legal. Therefore, the fairest and most equitable method of judging in a situation like this is not an accusation of cheating, but an open discussion with the player in question. Instead of coming to a player to tell them that what they are doing is illegal, in my opinion, rulings like this should open with the question, why do you believe that it is legal? Which then gives them leave to describe context on rules idiosyncrasies that the judge may not be aware of. This is especially useful since in 40k, a player that primarily focuses on the faction in question will often have a far greater understanding of that faction's mechanics than the judge of the event themselves. Now, at the time of recording, Frontline Gaming has not made any comment about this situation, but honestly, the end result isn't the biggest of deals. And I'm not sure it had a huge effect on the final result of the event after the draw was implemented. It does, however, give us a good look into the judging style implemented at Frontline Gaming events, and, importantly, how it can be improved. I hope that incidents like this give us leave to further improve 40k's competitive scene, and to avoid feels-bad moments like these that can ruin players' games. Approaching awkward rule situations like this in the manner that I described above, I think is the best way to make sure that competitive 40k stays amicable and fair while retaining the spirit and letter of the rules. Now, before I wrap up the video, I want to address the elephant in the room, because every time a situation like this arises, the question about streaming at 40k events is raised, and I will admit that I am very biased in this discussion as someone who does stream 40k events. You can check out my stream replay channel link in the description to see VODs of the past in-person events that I've covered. With 40k drama often being caught on camera on streams, the community always asks whether refusing to stream events or allow streamers to attend theirs is better for the health of the game. And many large events have already banned streamers entirely. But here's the thing, that logic is super dumb. In my head, it's kind of like survivorship bias. If you've ever seen the meme with the plane and the bullet holes in it, you'll know what I'm talking about. A stream or recording being present doesn't cause the drama to occur. The situation will arise regardless, but the community only gets to see it at events that are streamed. So banning streaming to limit the amount of drama in the community just falls into the fallacy of correlation equaling causation. With streams present, we actually get to see these events unfold, and especially in situations like this, in a way that can change how events operate for the better in the future to resolve and avoid future drama. As a participant, I would also immediately be suspicious of an event that did not allow streaming, since poor judging or event management may be rampant, and the TOs would like to do their best to cover that up. And similarly, as a TO, I would be equally suspicious of a player who refuses to be streamed, since they may be looking to hide shady play away from cameras where it can be recorded. But anyway, that's all I have to say about this weekend's drama. All right, one quick note before we wrap up for real this time, because I forgot to put it in my original script, so I just want to throw it down here at the end. There was an open question about Kevin's list, but it was not related to the incident that occurred on stream. Kevin did take Abaddon and Cypher together in the same Supreme Command detachment, which theoretically Cypher allows because he's allowed to be included in a detachment that has a Chaos Lord in it without taking a Force Organization slot. However, there's a clause in the rule for Supreme Command that requires it to only include a single unit. Whether or not that clause refers to the fact that it only has a single slot in it or is a restriction on any non-Force Org slot models being included is an open question, I think, up into interpretation, but that did not preclude the army from unlocking those Chaos Knight secondaries. That was the actual question that was brought up to the judge. So I know somebody's going to talk about it, so I'm just going to talk about it right here. Let me know down in the comments what you think should be done in situations like these and whether or not you agree with the judge's ruling in this case. As always, big thanks to everyone who supports the channel over on Patreon at patreon.com/tacticaltortoise. YouTube channel members, you can join in the link down below the video, and Twitch subscribers, all of you get access to all sorts of additional content and cool stuff, and I really appreciate you. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.